Do you remember Andrew Yang, the gentleman that ran for president in 2020 that was an advocate of UBI, Universal Basic Income? Did you know that he's running for mayor of New York City? Did you know that he was the front runner? Do you know how he's doing now? Welcome to Escaping the Echo Chamber. So if you remember Andrew Yang, he ran for president in 2020 and he was like the complete outsider. But he managed to gain traction because at that time, Bernie was killing it. Bernie had so much support. And I mean, like it was looking like it was going to be Bernie and Trump. The two guys that were just had crowds wherever they went. Like they would show up and throngs of people would just be there. They had the most, loyal, most energized supporters. And it looked like, okay, this is going to be Bernie and Trump. Of course, the Democratic establishment didn't want it to be Bernie. Kind of like how in 2016, the Republican establishment didn't want it to be Trump. But that's another story. So while there were a bunch of people that were supporting Bernie, people that weren't supporting Bernie were looking for something different. There weren't very clear options because the rest of the field, nobody was standing out. That gave an outsider like Andrew Yang an opportunity to come up, and come up he did. Because he went from completely obscure, no name, no recognition, to just start climbing. He was at one point he was polling better than like Kamala Harris and people like that. So like these were people that the media was pumping like, oh yes, this is who people like. This is who people are going to choose. But then instead, the actual people on the ground were like, yeah, we're not really interested in that person. Who's this guy? And I gotta think that a lot of that had to do with UBI, Universal Basic Income. That was his signature policy, giving people like $1,000 check every month, and helping them to survive, helping them to pay bills, and just not have to be fighting tooth and nail just to stay above water. I get it. I get why that was a popular idea. A lot of people were struggling. A lot of people still are struggling. And so that's why now that he's running for New York City mayor, a lot of people remember that. A lot of people remember that, remember him. And a lot of people are like, wait a minute. Like, because if you don't know, if you're not from New York, if you haven't been to New York is just getting more expensive every single day. So even though that's not his signature policy right now, people remember that and they're like, okay, wait a minute. The UBI guy as the mayor of New York, we could do worse. And quite frankly, right now, with our current mayor, we're not doing too great. But now that he's in New York, now that he's running for mayor, and now that he has a spotlight on him and was leading the pack, some people didn't like it. So the media is up to old tricks. The media wasn't fond of Andrew Yang back in 2020 when he was running for president, and it seems like that same media still isn't fond of him. They would do things like leave him off of polls. They would leave him out of the discussion. So they would talk about the people that are running and then just leave him out of the discussion. Even if he was in a debate, they name everybody else who was in the debate and forget to mention Andrew Yang. There were times they even actually put some other Asian guy's picture up there and says, oh yeah, this is the other guy. So they were doing stuff that a lot of people started to realize that's not quite accidental. And now there are a lot of attacks against them and a lot of, especially from the media, a lot of trying to find somebody else. So even the way they're phrasing the news accounts, they're talking about, oh yes, somebody's on the rise, even if that person was, 10 points behind Yang. However, right now, he actually has fallen behind. In part because of some of the negative press. And quite frankly, New Yorkers are noticing something about Andrew Yang. He may not actually be an authentic New Yorker. It's less of a thing about actual policy and more of a persona, So New Yorkers want to feel like they're actually supporting an actual New Yorker. And Andrew Yang is seeming kind of almost as if he's just a carpetbagger, somebody who's not from New York. But you know that meme? There's a meme. Steve Buscemi holding a skateboard, got the cap on, and he's something like, "Hello, my fellow teenagers." That's kind of how a lot of people are looking at Andrew Yang. He's done some things that's not really helping his case. So one of the things has to do with bodegas, the bodega scandal or Bodega Gate. On Twitter, he does a video. He posts a video. He's like, "Oh yes, I support. I love New York, and I support our local bodegas, and that's why I'm going into this bodega now." And then he goes into a store. Okay, if you're not from New York, you may not know what a bodega is. But a bodega is like a corner neighborhood, market. Not even a market. It's a corner neighborhood store. It's very small. It's got some some food stuff, sodas and drinks and stuff like that. Sometimes they'll have the little deli where they make sandwiches and bacon, egg, and cheese. Yeah, bacon, egg, and cheese is a very New York thing. It's a staple. The establishment. The establishment. This is funny. It's funny from a New Yorker's perspective. And I'm trying to think of a way to describe it to somebody who's not a New Yorker. It's kind of like calling Whole Foods a mom and pop shop. You know what I'm saying? Because that was part of the reactions to Andrew Yang's declaration of going into this bodega. Because I looked at this place, I'm like, that's not a bodega. It was a very upscale, fancy looking, kind of like gourmet deli type, and it was not a bodega. Bodegas are they're not dirty or dingy, but they're cozy. That's a better word. I think it's a perfect term. They're very cozy. This was like a very large, expansive. This was like I said, it's like calling Whole Foods a mom and pop shop. So people were riding him for like at least a week behind that, and he's made similar missteps. He was riding a train, and he's claimed he was riding that train to the Bronx, except that train. Okay, he was on a train and said he's headed to the Bronx. The train he was on doesn't go to the Bronx. So people were saying, now, you know what? It could have been Nick Fagan, because he could just say, "Hey, I'm on this train headed to the Bronx," and he knows he has to transfer at a certain point to take the train that's actually headed to the Bronx. But people were saying that the way he phrased it made it seem as if he didn't know that train doesn't actually go to the Bronx. The latest misstep, and I'm going to use quotes this time. He appeared on a show called Z-Ways. She's a new talk show host, and she asked him the question. Well, she asked him a couple of questions. One of the questions she asked him was, who was his favorite hip hop artist? And he said he liked Jay-Z and Nas. She said, "Okay, what's your favorite songs from them? What's your favorite Jay-Z song?" And he's like, what is my favorite Jay-Z song?" And that's where the clip ended. You see, so that's the clip that people were sharing on social media. So it looked like he had no answer. However, when you watch the full clip, he answers the question. So he may have had to pause to think about it. And quite frankly, I mean, I can get it. To think of what your favorite song is, I don't have one favorite song. I've got a bunch of songs. And really, if you ask me at any given time, you'll probably hear a different song. Okay, right now, my favorite Jay-Z song, Black Republican, Nas and Jay-Z. I like that song. And so, I mean, there's a bunch of Jay-Z songs I can think of. But that, like I said, in any given moment, it's like, what's moving you at that moment? So I can get how he can pause and try to think about it. Additionally, he said, so actually, yeah, I forgot to tell you what song he actually chose. He chose the Linkin Park Jay-Z song. And then he chose a Kanye Jay-Z song that he couldn't actually say the title of. So think about it. That makes sense. If that was the song he thought of, it makes sense that he was like, Yeah. So yeah, it's N word in Paris. N words in Paris. So yeah, that makes sense that he would be hesitant. Clearly, like he's like, I can't say the title of this song and still hope to have a mayoral campaign after that. He's like, so I have to, I have to think of a different song other than this song. That may have been what was happening because that was the second song he said, but he did not say the N word. He actually he says he's like, yeah, I can't say the full title, but so I'm thinking there are people that don't like him and just want to pile on, and any little thing now they're gonna jump on. I do think he's been doing a lot of pandering, and he doesn't come through as authentic on many of these issues. That one, I think he may actually like Jay-Z and Nas, and even if he doesn't, like, is that really a big deal? Because quite frankly, side note, Jay-Z and Nas have both endorsed somebody else in this race, Ray McGuire. I'll be doing a video about him too, because he's a private businessman, but hey, that's not what this is about. Like I said, we'll be doing a video on Ray McGuire as well. But it's like, yeah, people are piling on Andrew Yang, and it's like, okay, if you don't like him, you don't like him. Me personally, I think I'm not a fan of his either. I wasn't a fan of his from UBI because I'm not a fan of the policy of UBI. Universal basic income, I get that sometimes people have rough spots, but now what you're doing is you're going from, instead of saying, let's help you if you're having trouble, to let's just take care, let the government just be everybody's daddy and mommy. Like, no, because among other things, that's higher taxes. And quite frankly, the point is, how I see it, my job is to take care of me. My job is to take care of me. Your job is to take care of you. If we're not doing our job, it's not somebody else's job to do it. So I wasn't a fan of UBI, nor was I a fan of one of his most, like, the driving force behind why he said UBI was needed, because he would talk about the advancement of technology and how certain jobs will be obsolete. And I'm like, and yeah, certain jobs will be obsolete. Like, that's why this mentality that a lot of us have, and quite frankly, we have this because that's what public school taught us. And that's why we have to stop just following instructions and following what they tell us to do. That's not a formula for success. And just saying, okay, I'll just get a job, get a career, and then just do that for 47 years and then retire. It doesn't make sense. You see, technology advances, society advances. We should never stop learning. We should always be advancing with it. So if we're in this mentality that somehow society, technology, like the world should stop to keep us comfortable, like the things to stop moving forward because we don't feel like moving forward with it. No, like that makes no sense, and that's not good. That's not good for us individually. That's not good for society as a whole. So I think his entire reasoning behind why UBI was needed is flawed from the get-go. But he did drop significantly, and now you have somebody like I think Eric Adams is leading, who's a former the Brooklyn Borough president, former police officer. Also, at one point, he was a Republican. They're kind of overblowing him being a Republican because he was a Republican for like 4 years or something like that. And then he was a Democrat, became a Republican for 4 years, then went back to the Democratic Party. It was a short window of time. And so, it was over 10 years ago that this happened. It was like late 90s. So late 90s into early 2000s. So it's like, yeah, some of this attention is overblown. But hey, it's a mayoral race, and they will try to find ridiculous stuff to focus on. But if you're a fan of Andrew Yang, let me know in the comment section. Let me know if you like him, why you like him. If you liked him in 2020, if you're following the New York mayoral race, let me know in the comment section too. Also, if you just like the channel and like the content, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, like, share, subscribe, and subscribe to the channel because I talk about politics, I talk about social issues. So if you want to hear more about that, be sure to subscribe. And if you don't like what I've said, if you don't like my criticisms of UBI, you don't like my take on Andrew Yang, give me a thumbs down. But don't just give me a thumbs down and run away. Give me a thumbs down and then write why in the comment section below. And then I'll address it either in the comment section or in a future video. I'll see you next time.